The secondary watch market peaked in the spring of 2022, in March or April, depending on the specific references or brands you're looking at. It's been 2 years since then, and in this video, we'll cover some of the watches that have lost the most value in relative terms from their peak market prices. The list is roughly organized by value lost, starting with the absolute worst performer, but grouped by brand so it's easy to follow. All the data in this video comes from WatchCharts.com, the world's most powerful watch market research platform. Visit our website to understand high-level watch market trends, get up-to-date pricing on over 24,000 watches, and track the value of your collection. Also, if you're interested in buying and selling among fellow collectors, then we invite you to visit the WatchCharts marketplace at marketplace.watchcharts.com. The list kicks off with the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in steel, reference 16202 ST, but this is specifically the variant that was the 50th anniversary one that was just made for the 1 year back in 2022. It's now discontinued. So this specific reference you can no longer purchase, but there is a different blue dial version that is available on the secondary market as well as in current production. The market price for this 2 years ago was $261,800, and today it has dropped into five figures at $81,500, which means that over the last 2 years, this watch has lost 69% of its value. For all watches that are over $10,000 in market price and that have seen at least 10 sales in this amount of time, this watch has lost the most value of any other watch on that list. The next one from AP is a chronograph, also a Royal Oak in steel, and again for the 50th anniversary, therefore now discontinued. This one retailed for $37,400, but hit the market at $168,900, and is also now back down to five figures at $60,200, meaning it's lost about 64% of its value. Now, it is interesting to mention here that there are two sort of interrelated dynamics at play here. One is that, of course, when a watch is first released, there is a premium for buying that watch on the secondary market, and as more and more supply becomes available, that premium drops because supply and demand become more closely matched. In this instance, however, this is a watch that is now discontinued, and so whatever supply is out there is what the supply is. And despite that fact, especially since, let's say the start of 2023, so now over a year and a quarter, the value for this watch has still been declining after it was no longer in production, because as I mentioned at the start, it was only in production for 1 year. So both of those factors combined help to explain why this watch has lost as much value as it has. But of course, the steeper decline came in 2022 itself, and is not an effect that is, in any way unique to this specific watch or even to AP. In fact, we can move on to Patek Philippe and look at the annual calendar chronograph reference 5905/1A. This is in current production and has a retail price of $64,220. It trades below its retail price today at $58,600, but 2 years ago, the value for this watch was market value for this watch was $129,000. So it's lost 55% of its market value in that time. And again, some of that initial decline is because of just the availability for this watch sort of growing with time. But since then, the value has started to decline to where today it trades below retail, even though it is a somewhat sporty looking watch on a steel bracelet that is not within the Nautilus or the Aquanaut families, but is still not as classically styled as some of Patek Philippe's other watches. But purely on the sports watch side, of course, the sort of undisputed, certainly in the secondary market or the public consciousness, king of integrated bracelet stainless steel sports watches, the Patek Philippe Nautilus reference 5711/1A, specifically with the blue dial. So this is the -010 that is now discontinued. Used to retail for $34,890 before it got discontinued. And 2 years ago, the watch was valued at $152,400. This was not the peak price that this watch achieved. That came a little bit earlier, but just to do the 2 year comparison, since we're sticking with the same dates where possible, today this trades at under $90,000, which means it's lost 41% of its market value in that time. The other sports watch from Patek, which is not discontinued and is actually still in current production, is the Aquanaut Reference 5167A. This one with just the black dial, the -001, retails for $24,450. 2 years ago, the market price for this watch was $69,900, and today it's dropped just under 30% to $49,600. And so this is a trend or sort of market dynamic that we had referenced at other points as well. But we see it playing out here again, which is that the more hyped the watch is, the farther it has fallen. If the watch did not experience as much hype to begin with, then the subsequent decline has not been as severe either. And so, already we're down from where we were at the start of the list, which was 69% of value lost for the 16202 ST to 29% for Patek Philippe. But if we want to go back up into the, high 40s percent for value lost, we can look at the Omega Speedmaster Silver Snoopy Award 50th anniversary. This is also in current production at $10,600, and 2 years ago traded for over $30,000 and is now roughly half of that, and still above its retail price, more than 1.5 times its retail price, but certainly has seen its value decline in the last 2 years and doesn't necessarily show any trend of that slowing down. That's the thing with these sorts of watches that remain in production, that are hyped when they first come out. Just it's a supply and demand sort of game where as more and more pieces become available and some buyers possibly lose interest because the watch is no longer front and center of mind, those two things sort of combine, regardless of what the backdrop of the market conditions are, which of course in this case have been negative as well and negatively contributing to market values as well. The market value for the watch does drop. And so combined, those two factors again help explain why we got to minus 47% for this one. Moving on to Rolex, the first one we'll look at is the GMT Master 2 Sprite, the reference 126720 VTNR. This actually first hit the market just less than 2 years ago on May 6th, actually. And so from May 6th to April 30th, which is when we did this analysis, this watch lost 58% of its market value. And so we're back above, the 50% mark. So if you happen to buy one of these right at the start when the market was at its very peak, when the watch was hot, and supply was very, very limited, and you still have held on to that watch after having purchased it on the open market, you will have lost more than half of the watch's value. So these are sort of the things to keep in mind if you're considering buying, for example, one of the hot new releases from Watches and Wonders in 2024 that just concluded a few weeks ago. But the market price for this starting out was around $43,000, $44,000, and today it can be had for around $18,000. Next, we can look at what is arguably one of the most popular watches on the secondary market as a whole. Certainly, if you look at the numbers, then in terms of total transaction value, this is one of the most popular watches. It's now discontinued and has been superseded by the reference 126500, but this is the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona reference 116500 with a last retail price of $14,800. 2 years ago, it was at $42,200 for its market price, and that is below the peak. The peak was a little bit higher. And today it trades at $27,400. This is both dial variants, the black and the white combined. And so collectively, those two variants have lost 35% of their market value. And while we've talked about some of these specific examples, I think it's also important to remember that this isn't obviously the whole picture. The market has seen a lot of decline, and that decline continues over the last 2 years or so. And if we just look at by the numbers, how many watches have lost this much in value, the watches that have lost more than 50% of their market value come from Patek, Audemars Piguet, and Rolex, and there's 7 of them. Between 40 and 50%, there's 24 watches from Patek, AP, Girard-Perregaux, Rolex, and Omega. That's the Speedmaster we referred to. And then watches that lost between 30 and 40% of their market value, there's 94 references. And they come from Patek, Audemars Piguet, Girard-Perregaux, Rolex, Bulgari, Hublot, Vacheron, Omega, Panerai, and Grand Seiko. And so it's not just the case that some of these are hype watches that, just naturally saw after their release their market value come down a little bit. It also just is reflective of the overall state of the market. And of course, if you are familiar with the market indexes from our website, then you can see that regardless of whether we're talking about the overall market index or the Rolex, Patek, or AP indexes, each of those is down significantly since the peak in early 2022. So, would you buy one of these watches today, or would you wait to see if they'll drop even further in value? For some of these watches, as supply becomes even more available and they remain in current production, maybe that will continue to have a downward pressure on prices, regardless of what the market conditions are like. But of course, as we know, the market today is still in a state of decline. So who knows if we're anywhere near the bottom yet, or if prices have further to fall. Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching.